With our PIP for the Metro Planning Department, we have Doug Sloan. And Doug, I'm going to not take any of your 7 minutes, but I am going to give a quick shout out to a couple folks. And then you can take your 7 minutes, which you will have to introduce the folks that you've brought with you, make your pitch. Then we'll have 7 minutes to ask you questions. I wanted to just say that we also are joined by several council members. We have Council Member Bill Pridemore, who heads up the Metro budget process. We have Council Member Mina Johnson and Council Member Russ Pulley, who are with us. I also know that a lot of work has gone into this PIP, and I just want to say in advance that if your PIP is not chosen, it doesn't mean it wasn't a great idea. It may mean that it needs to be fleshed out more, or it needs to be funded in year 2 or year 3, but it doesn't take away, I know, from all the hard work that you guys have done. So Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you. When I do that, Zach is going to give you 2 seconds, and then he's going to push the button.
To my right is Bob Leemings, Deputy Director, Greg Claxton, who's worked on this project as well as Nashville Next, and Billy Davis with Metro Public Works. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg Claxton because we have him timed.
All right, thank you all. So we're presenting our request for 3 additional staff to support the capital improvements budget. As most of you know, I believe the charter requires that Planning Commission recommend a prioritized set of projects every year to the Mayor and Council, bringing together all of the requests from every department. I believe, as most of you also know, for the past 10 or 15 years we have not been doing this. I've got a few unkind things to say about the current CIB, and I want to make clear that we believe that that's a reflection on our lack of engagement and not on any of our partners. As we were working on Nashville Next over the past 3 years, and as we were getting it adopted, a couple of long-term trends became clear that they were converging. And that is, in the areas where we have the oldest infrastructure are also the areas that, in a lot of cases, we want to highlight for infill development over the next 25 years. As we look at where we want to grow and where we want to preserve, those 2 places come together. On the one hand, that's a tremendous opportunity to have upgrading our infrastructure's life cycle coincide with when we need to expand it to accommodate more population and more diverse needs. On the other hand, we think that also brings a number of challenges. Difficulty acquiring land and facilities as areas take off. It's pricier to get land, and then also more complications maintaining or upgrading infrastructure. We think this really highlights the need for co-locating facilities and coordinating infrastructure work over the next 5, 10, 25 years. The capital improvements budget is the natural place for that to happen. Last year's CIB had 636 project requests from basically just about every metro department, $5.2 billion in spending. However, when you get inside the CIB and look at kind of how that's phased out over time, most of the spending is stacked up in the first year, more than $2 billion last year, which means that the CIB is not serving right now as a place that you can go and figure out when are we making investments and how do we line up different department requests. If you look at some of the out years, you'll see that most of the spending in the out years aren't new projects that are being phased in, they're the continuation of long-term projects. Thanks to the assistance of Mr. Riebling and Ms. Lomax O'Neill, we surveyed departments, all of the metro departments earlier, late last year, to just gauge what are your capital planning processes like. And the good news is that most of the spending is accounted for by departments who are doing capital planning. It's just not making it into the CIB in a way that can coordinate over the long term. With the adoption of Nashville Next last year, we immediately set to work getting more engaged with this. One of the things that we heard from the public throughout that process was, by and large, the planning is fine. What needs more emphasis is implementation. So we knew the CIB and capital projects were going to be a huge piece of that implementation. So we set out last summer a 3-year process to re-engage with the CIB. This first year has been a tremendous learning experience for us, reconnecting with many more departments, even more than we encountered during Nashville Next, learning the ins and outs of the CIB, learning a little bit more about other departments' capital planning processes. That's been the focus. We haven't started making any changes yet. I think it's one of the things that we've learned is that if we had jumped in and immediately made changes, things would have just gotten a little out of hand. So we focused this year on learning. We're developing protocols for assessing how projects align with Nashville Next, Next. We're not rolling that out as part of this year's CIB. We're going to do that, roll those out to departments after the end of this budget cycle so that we can say, this is how we understood your projects. Did we get it right? Do we need to tweak how we understood them? That sort of thing, so that it'll be a part of next year's CIB. And we want to do that because we're very focused on doing this with other departments and not something that's just kind of handed down from planning. This is how it's going to be. Next year, we should be ready to start reporting on how we've assessed projects, as well as begin some public review of the CIB, as well as doing more to engage council earlier in the process. And then by year 3, we expect to be ready to work with Planning Commission to actually set priorities, to recommend priorities to the mayor and to council to help inform your decisions. Our goal in all of this is to create a CIB that's a better resource for all stakeholders. We see that as combining Metro Council, the mayor and Metro departments, and then everyday Nashvillians. We think that with the team that we have working together, we can create a capital planning process that promotes effective, efficient spending, data-driven decisions, transparency, and alignment with long-term community goals. When we go out and talk to the public about Nashville Next, one of the things that we highlight is the need to do this kind of coordination on capital investments, particularly in our centers and corridors identified on the Nashville Next Growth and Preservation Concept Map. And we have a list kind of like this, where we highlight the kind of things that you could coordinate in those areas to improve quality of life and to change the shape of the marketplace. One of the things that we've learned is that the CIB, kind of the 2 to 4 month window that we have to work on it, probably isn't enough. So we've been engaging departments as they update their master plans to see how they align with Nashville Next. And so kind of the highlighted ones are the ones that are already underway or about to start or have another long-term process getting started. So we want to continue to kind of fulfill that role and get even more engaged with departments as they update those plans, because that's a lot of what drives their requests. Just to highlight one of the things that we mean when we talk about coordination or co-location, this is a list of facility requests in Southeast Davidson County. In this year's CIB, you'll see a very diverse set of new facilities needed, and we want to start asking the question, how do these fit together? Can they fit together? Some of them seem like natural partners, some of them seem like things maybe we don't want to put together. So we want to sort of set up a process working with our partners where we can bring departments together to talk through this and identify where are the cost savings as we look at these different kinds of investments. In terms of outcomes, there are a range of things we could count: compatible investments, projects we assess, projects that are improved through coordination or cost savings. But really the big thing we want to see is, are we achieving the future that Nashvilleians are asking for? Are we creating places that are transit supportive, vibrant, healthy, and affordable, safe and walkable, and investment ready? If we do these things, we think we'll hit all 5 of your priority areas. Our request is 2 full-time employees this year, 1 additional one in FY19 for a total cost of $594,000, up against the $5.2 billion in spending requests and $2.0 billion in spending over the past 5 years. We think that's an efficient and reasonable investment. Thank you.
All right.
Well said. Thank you for doing it and not having Mr. Sloan do it, because he's a little more long-winded, less succinct.
We all saw the wisdom of it.
I have been involved, obviously, in the capital project for the last several years, and I concur 100% with the goals of this, because I think there is a very unstructured process and it needs to be done better. But the only thing I don't quite yet understand is, explain to me what these people are going to do and how they're necessary to make this all happen. Sure. Why we can't do it with existing resources. And
we're not doing it now.
Yeah, why aren't we doing it? Yeah.
So a big piece of it is that most of our existing resources in terms of planners, our land development planners, our community planners, and our transportation planners are really driven by the development cycle. And so as development has taken off, that has taken more and more time. I believe that connects to some of our other requests. Part of it is also being driven by the development cycle puts you on a pace of every 2 weeks where you've got clear deadlines to meet in terms of getting to Planning Commission or getting supporting materials to Metro Council, that sort of thing. So what we want is some folks who are dedicated to this, who can work on it year-long, driven by the needs of the CIB. And and we're looking at that, supporting some work in October in terms of public involvement and work with council, supporting department, kind of supporting department planning throughout the year, receiving projects every year, and then reporting out on those and supporting kind of public oversight of that throughout the year. In terms of what they'll be doing, a lot of it will be department work, kind of in some cases, such as Public Works, working very closely to see, kind of how the projects, a very long list of very detailed projects line up with Nashville Next. In other cases, for departments that don't have the capital plans that Public Works or MTA or Metro Water does, we'd be working with them to help quantify and look ahead to see what their needs are and when they can phase those in. Part of it is also going to be later on, probably towards year 3, getting into a little bit more assessment, stepping in not just how do these projects align with Nashville Next, but how do you start comparing some of the different needs and requests, not definitively, but to make it provide a little bit more of an informed prioritization.
And my question is, let's just say that this doesn't get selected. Status quo, nothing changes. CIB continues to just be scattershot, and we're sad.
It just, I don't know that that we have the manpower to be able to bring all the departments together.
And so let me ask you that, because clearly part of the budget process that we just went through, I asked every department, or I tried to, how many open positions do you currently have? And there are significant open positions in several departments. Why couldn't we reallocate some of those positions to be these positions without an additional cost? Do you have any open positions?
We have open positions. We have 2 right now.
Okay. How many do you guys have?
I can speak for engineering, Mayor. We have 1 right now.
And
boy, there was sure a whole lot more going around last week.
Our open positions, as I know we've discussed once before, is just the nature of our department and the rate of turnover that we have.
And I'm not necessarily saying that this has to come from those 2 open positions that you have or the 1 open position that you have, but if there's 50 open positions at codes or 60 at water, like, is there a way to coordinate so that we can co-opt one of those positions and have it be budget neutral? I guess is my... I don't know. This is my question.
I am unsure about,
You don't feel qualified to take public works?
I'm not sure Mr. Potter would be all right with me co-opting one of his positions, so I can't really speak for the other.
But you're open to exploring the idea. We'll explore.
We'll explore it. Right. We'll explore it. Michael.
I have a question. You had some numbers up there as far as the CIB. In any given year, the CIB is $5 billion. When it's time for the mayor to recommend a capital spending plan, it's probably going to be $300 million.
Of what gets actually funded.
Of what gets actually funded.
I think that's helpful for people to know.
When you come back with this prioritization framework, okay, what does that look like when that comes back to the mayor with recommendations on how do you get from $5 billion to $300 million?
That's a good question, and frankly, it's something we're still figuring out. I mean, that's part of...
Would this position help with that?
Yes. I mean, it's, part of it is, I mean, part of it would be, I expect, information on how every project submitted lines up with Nashville Next for infrastructure projects, and then kind of more broadly a set of technical criteria. So we'll assess every project. We'll provide information on why we're setting recommendations that we do. So if, for example, we're looking at a couple of years where we're really funding projects in centers and corridors, a year or 2 after that, we may need to kind of weigh things differently and promote more focus on equity and opportunity or preserving the natural environment. We'll have a sense of what's the weighting that's going into that. And then I I think, if we had a sense of if there's a budget number that you're trying to meet, we could, kind of provide some recommendations in terms of that. But primarily, I think our piece is providing more information on how these projects fit into the long-term vision of the community.
Just a comment, but I think that whatever you design needs to be nimble, and where you're able to adjust quickly, particularly because you may get new funding for grants and things like that within a cycle that you've not even anticipated. I'm looking at you in particular, and that could drive some of those resources being reallocated. So I would hope that whatever process is designed is very flexible.
Right, and let me emphasize, we're on the front end of this. This year, our idea is to work with the departments and understand where they are.
Right.
And so it's hard to predict what that final product's going to look until we really have an understanding of where everyone is. I mean, Public Works has a long-range plan, but how that
all fits together.
Right, how it all fits together, we're not sure of it.
One also heard that it shouldn't take 3 years to do this, but you should do it in 2 years. Just think about that.
I'd say once. I'd say by next year.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Because we're already in year 1, so we're out of time because the computer's gone away and it's flashed and we're done. And you all, thank you so much for coming in and thank you for the proposal. We really appreciate it. So, good.
Thank you.
And that concludes.